Hello everyone, it's CreativeNameToStandOut again with another battle report, and this time it's a game between my Khorne Bloodbound, the Blood Slaves, and an opponent's Dispossessed, or the Jordan, however you know them by. So this is the second game in a mini campaign that we're holding. The first game was called War of the Storms, where we had two armies that were backed by their respective energies. Mine was Khorne, and my opponent's was Order, so probably Sigmar. And where we were fighting, we were having a battle, and as a side was winning, their energies were taking over the territory, and whoever at the end of the game controlled a majority of the territory had their energies just swallow up the rest of it. So that's what happened, and in that game, the Khorne Bloodbound won it. So now I'm running around the local area, pillaging and taking things and ruining things, and I've come across one of the Jordan artifacts, and it's a really special artifact to them, so this battle will replicate them counter-attacking to get that artifact back. So this scenario is called the Hidden Artifact, and let me go ahead and explain how the rules work for that. Alright, so here we have a overview of the deployment zones, and as you can see, the deployment zones are right next to each other. In addition to that, there is a rule that explicitly says I can deploy in combat. Now, as a Khorne player, this is just beautiful. There's 4 things that Khorne does: move, run, charge, and kill. If you're telling me in this scenario I can skip 3 of those and just go for the kill, there's nothing better for a Khorne player to hear, and this is going to be an interesting, exciting, and I think lopsided in the beginning way to have a battle. So I'm excited about it. Hopefully my opponent has some devious ways to not play to my strengths. Now, the objective of the game is not to murder my opponent. If that was the case, then this would be easy schmeezy. But my objective is instead to pick one unit who will have the artifact and get them across the board to the eastern board edge. Once I get within 6 inches of that board edge, I can remove the unit, and that's the end of the game. Now, on the other side, my opponent is just trying to kill the unit. He doesn't know which one it is initially, but he needs to locate it and then kill it. Now, you're probably looking at this and be like, okay, well, that doesn't seem like a really fair shake for my opponent. I get to start in combat, and I have a head start when it gets to going towards the eastern board edge. Well, yeah, it's kind of lopsided at first, but let me tell you some things that may dissuade you of that opinion. So the first thing is the unit that has the artifact cannot run, cannot charge, cannot fly, cannot teleport, can't do nothing but walk. It can only move its movement value. Anything else that I want to try to pull off, no go. Just move 5 inches. So that's going to give my opponent at least 4 turns to break through my rear guard and try to catch up with me, which I think is doable. So, and since I can't run, even though he has Jordan, who I think moved like 3 inches, he's going to be able to catch up with him when you include runs and stuff. Now, in addition to this, my opponent can nominate any amount of units he would like and have them deploy in reserves. In reserves, on the second turn, I should say, he can take those reserves and just place them on the north or south board edge. If I've deployed a unit way too close to the board edge, he can just start off in combat, just like I started off in combat in the initial deployment zone. So he can't intercept my units. So I have to not only hold his western front back with my rear guard, but I also have to have some escorting units help my blood warriors, who, bear in mind, cannot charge, break through whatever forces he tries to throw in my way. So those are the dynamics of the game. We'll see if I can pull it off, and let's start with deployment. Now, it's very unlike me, but I forgot to take pictures of the individual deployments. But I did remember to take pictures of the overall deployment, and I'll try my best to explain the important deployments as they happened. So first things first, when you look in this picture, the first unit to deploy was the 30-strong unit of Jordan. And once that happened, I had no choice but to put the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster in there. Khorne was speaking to me. He was like, this is a chance you cannot give up. This is why you bought the Bloodthirster. It's for total carnage. And sure enough, when it happened, it was destiny. I don't care if it's not a good tactical choice, I had to do it. Now, I know that I could not get the first turn, my opponent could, and so to lessen the attacks towards my Bloodthirster in case that happened, I also put a unit of Blood Reavers there just to deflect a lot of those attacks, just to prevent him from consolidating completely around my Bloodthirster and bringing him down, or practically down by inflicting so many wounds that when I did strike, he was just going to be ineffective. Now on the right flank we have his Longbeards, I believe they are, guarding the artillery, so I have some Blood Reavers there just for the opportunity that if he didn't put anything there, I could rush in the Blood Reavers and hopefully kill off an artillery piece. It rarely works out for me because the artillery pieces are a little bit sturdier than I anticipate every single time. Maybe that's something I should think about. But he put his Longbeards there, and they're to keep me honest, basically. In the center, I have another unit of Blood Reavers. They're there to respond to either this fight between the rear guard and the western flank forces of the Jordan. If things go sour, these guys will just be in the way to buy more time for my Blood Warriors who have the artifact. However, if things start looking good and the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster does what I think he's going to do, then they can move towards the east and help escort the Blood Warriors. Now, speaking of the Blood Warriors, you can see them here in the center. I picked the 15-man unit to be the hidden artifact unit. So that's 30 wounds my opponent's going to have to eat through before he wins the game, which is good for me. And in addition to that, I didn't mention this before, the artifact, if I reveal it, will have the power to give all these guys the ability to ignore any wounds or mortal wounds on a 4-up. So now they're extremely, extremely durable. But of course, I have to reveal it, and I'm not sure I'm going to reveal it first turn just yet. Escorting them will be a unit of Skull Reapers, a Skull Grinder traveling with the unit itself, and another unit of 5 Blood Warriors who look like Pyre Legion guys, but trust me, they're Blood Warriors, and they're going to be moving east with them just to intercept any Jordan units that try to come on the board and kill off my Blood Warriors. So that's pretty much what the deployment looks like for all the important units. There are other characters out there just randomly deployed, but they're not too important to the overall game plan. The Blood Slaves roll off for the first turn, and what I'm going to do is move this whole line forward 6 inches. I don't want to give away just yet which unit is carrying the hidden artifact, so I'm not going to run any of them. Just going to move them all at the same pace. My opponent's pretty clever, though. I'm sure he knows which one it is. And then on the right side, I bring my Blood Reavers around. Now, I don't even plan to charge with them, even though I could easily make this charge. I'm just going to have a standoff. I'm just going to be in the way. There's no incentive for me to charge here because I know I'm not going to strike with them first, and if I charge with them and strike with my Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster first, then he's just going to go over here and get some free kills. It's not going to waste their lives on that. I then go into the shooting phase, and I breathe fire on the cannon and inflict D3 mortal wounds, killing them all, so now the cannon's out of commission, and I swing my other little chain weapon thing into the unit of Jordan and kill a few there also. So that brings us into combat, and it does, the Wrath of Khorne guy does exactly what I think he's going to do, and he kills the Jordan, the 30-strong Jordan, down to single-digit levels. I think there's 9 or 8 left. So, man, it felt so, so good, and I'll never experience this again probably because how many times did you get to deploy right into combat? But yeah, I did a mess there. Now, he did strike back with a character or two, and then also the remaining Jordan did a couple wounds to the Bloodthirster and killed off quite a few of the Blood Reavers, but they're still going to be around. That brings us into Jordan turn 1, and the first unit to pop out on the board will be the Jordan Hammers. And since he can, he's going to deploy them right into combat against the leftmost unit of Blood Warriors, the ones that look kind of like Pyre Legion guys, but they're not, trust me. But he does pop them up in there. He then brings his helicopters, both the bombers and just the regular ones, the gyrocopters, I guess. They're a little bit eastward of these hammers, and they're going to take shots into the big unit of Blood Warriors. And then finally, his 2 units of miners pop out in the middle of the board, forming a thin gray line, probably just to act as a speed bump so that the western front maybe can clean up and move his way to catch up with these units. So we go into the shooting phase right after that. The Organ Gun, unfortunately, can't hit the broadside of a Bloodthirster and misfires twice. And that brings us to some little bit of shooting here and there, especially from the helicopters. And at the end of the day, it ends up putting a couple wounds, I think, on a Skull Reaper and killing off 2 of the huge unit of Blood Warriors. So with that means he's going to get into combat, and he's going to declare a charge with his miners into the Skull Reapers. So despite that charge with the miners, he decides to go ahead and choose the hammers first. I think that's a good choice. Nearly wipes out the Blood Warriors. And of course, I have no other choice but to mess up those miners for charging me. And I rack up some good kills to help them reroll hits and probably wounds. I'm really close to it. That leads us to the center combat. All the Blood Reavers are dead now. All of them, the regular Jordan, are dead. And that leaves just the 3 Jordan heroes versus my Bloodthirsters. So we'll see who can come out on top on that in the long run. That's all the important combats. We finish up over with the Blood Warriors versus the Hammers. I think the rest of the miners run away after he actually ends up killing one of my Skull Reapers despite not having very many left. And that brings us an end to that combat phase. So the Khorne Bloodbound get the next turn, and here's an overview of the board. That moves us to the hero phase, and as always, or at least what's becoming a theme for my guy, Ordo prays to Khorne, and Khorne deems him unworthy once again. It's not until I actually kill somebody with Ordo that he's actually not inflicting his own wounds against him. He, of course, takes 3 mortal wounds for his troubles, and that moves us into the movement phase. And we see a lot of things going on here. The units that are moving towards the east edge do continue to move forward. You can see that the Blood Reavers that I've sent in the center to either react to the combats happening on the west side or to move with the units have now moved with the escorting units because I think I have the west side pretty locked down. I also move my Blood Reavers around the Longbeards just to make sure the most amount of them can get into combat when I do charge. And then I have several characters converging on this combat with the Bloodthirster. We go in the shooting phase, and I blow some fire on one of the Warden Kings, inflicting, I think, 3 or 2 wounds. Can't tell if he's counting up or down. And then I swing the chain anvil spiky thing, and I actually kill his general with it, so that felt good also. So 1 character down and 2 more to go. So now it's time to declare some charges. My Blood Reavers do charge the Longbeards. Ushkarmir and a unit of Blood Warriors charge the characters that are fighting off my Bloodthirster, and then I also have my Skull Reapers charge the second unit of miners to clear the way for the Blood Warriors. In the combat phase, I choose my Bloodthirster first, but what he did in the shooting phase, he ironically can't do in the combat phase, and he ends up whiffing, not able to kill either one of the characters or even inflict a wound, I believe. So that lets him strike back, and as you can see, he did knock out my Bloodthirster. There's only 6 wounds left. I'm going to follow up with some attacks from Ushkarmir and my other warriors, but I don't think I end up doing anything noticeable at least. So after that hero combat, we bring ourselves over to the miners, who are able to kill one of the Skull Reapers and inflict a wound on my Skull Grinder. I then decide to start my combat over where the Skull Reapers are near the organ gun, and I end up killing a surprising amount of these Jordan. Wasn't expecting that, probably ruled out of my mind. My opponent then answers back with the hammers, wiping out the rest of the Blood Warriors. I, in turn, wipe out all of his miners with thanks to the Skull Grinder, but definitely the Skull Reapers now being able to both reroll wounds and hits makes them incredibly deadly, and that pretty much ends our combat. So as we go into Jordan turn 2, things are looking pretty bad for the Jordan on the western side. He's running out of bodies. I don't think he has any forces left. They're going to make any sort of significant effort to make it towards the Blood Warriors who are trying to flee off the board. So he's really going to have to lean hard on his intercepting forces. And with that being said, I think it's very doable. I'm running out of bodies over there. He's going to end up shooting 2 of my Skull Reapers off the board. And that's really just going to leave a unit of Blood Warriors that can't engage anything unless he wants to, and a unit of Blood Reavers who, while strong in the sense that they're going to hit with a lot of attacks, they have no armor. And they're being spread out so much, I'm not entirely sure they're going to have a lot of synergy. So they may be able to do a couple wounds, but in a war of attrition, I think the helicopters are definitely going to one-up them. So with that considered, we go into the charge phase. He's going to do some shooting, like I said, do a couple wounds here and there. The big thing was killing off 2 of my Skull Reapers. The hammers are going to charge the Skull Grinder. Things are looking bad for him, I can say that much. And his 2 bombers actually charge the last of my Skull Reapers. Now, things are probably in his favor. There's only one wound left, but that is always iffy, especially with a unit that hits and wounds on 5s, I believe. So we go into combat, and surprisingly enough, the Skull Grinder actually lives through all those hammers attacks. I don't understand how it worked out that way, but it did. So that's really good for me. On the other hand, the bombers were able to kill off the last of my skull grinders, or not skull grinders, skull reapers, and that's where we stand on the eastern side of the board. Now, back at the western side where I thought I had everything in hand, these two characters went crazy and ended up killing both my General Ushkar Mir and all those Blood Warriors. So now, it doesn't look like I have the western front sealed up. I do still have several characters actually over there, so it's not completely lost to me, but it is concerning. So I need to figure out a way to kill these guys quickly. So as we move into turn 3, the Khorne Bloodbound win it once again. I don't know how I win it every time. It's a skill, I guess, but it's something that I seem to pull off, especially against the Jordan player. So there's going to be 3 things going on this turn. The first are the Blood Reavers on the east side are going to engage the helicopters. Now, I don't expect them to wipe them out, of course. They're not that great. There's not very much synergy going over there. And frankly, they're pretty tough tanks, these gyrocopters. So I'm hoping just to do what I can before they inevitably get shot to pieces, because they're not even wearing t-shirts. They're just shirtless, crazy guys. In the center, we have my characters converging against his very much wounded characters, and because of that, I am going to kill them off one by one. And then on the west side, I have these Blood Reavers who aren't able to finish off the last of the Jordan. I just can't get through that armor, and at the same time, he's not rolling too well when it comes to killing my own. So I am going to finally kind of get in range to start attacking the organ gun. That's the scariest thing on the table to me right now, besides, I guess, the gyrocopters, who are going to be a real pain in my butt as we try to finish this game up. And speaking of the organ gun, it kills Slaughter Priest Orto, so I need to silence that because this is what happens when it's allowed to exist. And I cannot handle that happening over and over and over again. I don't want to lose a character a turn. Otherwise, across the board, his helicopters, sure enough, took some wounds last turn, but they're pretty okay. They fly out of combat, land in the trees, and now they're going to be even harder to kill. That leads us to the combat on the west side. I think I finish off the engineer. I think I'm still finding one of the Jordan guys, and of course I didn't kill the organ crew just yet. So that's going to bring us to the next turn, and pretty much a lot of other turns. So after all this, I do end up winning the west side. I end up killing off the organ gun, but the rest of the board is just a mess. I'm not able to bring my guys all the way up to the east side to support the Blood Warriors, just because they're not fast enough, or when they finally do get in range, the helicopters shoot them down dead. His guns cannot kill off my Blood Warriors fast enough. We get to turn 9 before it just starts getting ridiculous. He's not able to kill the Blood Warriors fast enough just because there's so many wounds. I do have a 4+ save. I also have that 4 up to ignore any wounds that get through, so they're incredibly durable. So we play and play and play, hoping that something's going to get resolved. He's either going to kill all my guys, or he's going to kill my guys to a small enough number that I'm going to get a double turn, and I'm going to be able to sneak around him because he's moving with my warriors, and he's creating these, I guess, maybe, I don't know, 7 to 8 inch bubbles where I can't move my guys, and so I'm having to move left, and then to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right. And the only way I'm going to make a lot of progress is if I get a double turn with a small enough unit. We decide, you know what, it's getting late, let's just call it a tie. And so that's what happened. So at the end of the game, it's just a tie, and I'm going to reflect that in the next battle. So overall, I really liked this scenario. I think there are some weaknesses. I think you have to be aware of it before you start playing. If your opponent's bringing a lot of shooty stuff, then they're never going to have to engage the unit that has the artifact. And so all the boons that your artifact give you, which is the +1 attack, are utterly useless. If you can't charge with them, then they're useless. And if your opponent has something that flies that can do something kind of like what his helicopters are doing, it's going to make your game extremely long. So overall, though, I did have a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this game. I hope you guys enjoyed the battle report. As always, I really appreciate everybody's likes and comments. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. And otherwise, I'll have another battle report, the 3rd one for this campaign, sometime this coming week. All right, guys. See you guys later.